This is Peak Productivity, the podcast for Asana lovers and productivity nerds. Today we have our very first guest. We have Cesc Artigas, Head of Revenue Solutions at Asana. We will talk about AI, Asana culture and values, plenty of things. Welcome to Peak Productivity. Hi, Bastien. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, great. Super happy. Today we have our first guest in this Peak Productivity podcast, and he's Cesc Artigas, Head of Revenue Solutions at Asana. Welcome,
Hello.
Cesc, to our podcast.
Thank you. How are you doing? Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me.
The first of many guests.
Yeah. For those that don't know you, Cesc, can you explain us who are you and what you do at Asana?
Yeah, so I'm Cesc Artigas. I'm based out of the Dublin office of Asana. I'm head of solutions for the EMEA region. Been at Asana for over 5 years now. And for those that don't know what solutions does, is basically part of the sales organization, the revenue organization, but we do part of the solution scoping, proof of value during the sales process. So we work a lot with our customers in understanding their needs, their challenges, the pains that they have at any given time, and trying to provide the best solutions for them with Asana in order to get the best impact, the best value out of it.
And what's your relationship with Asana, not the company, the product? Can you explain us when you discovered Asana and how has been the journey?
So it comes from a long time ago. I was actually a user of Asana in my previous employers, in my previous jobs. Before Asana, I was at Dropbox. Before Dropbox, I was in a Google partner. In both places, I used Asana. I was more on the delivery side of things, less on the pre-sales. I was on both worlds, but mainly focused on delivery. So we used a lot Asana to make sure that those projects were progressing in the right way, that we could collaborate with teams that we were working with, both in the customer and internally in the organization, to make sure that things were clear by everyone, that everyone knew what they needed to do. Obviously, when I started the conversation with Asana, I kind of realized there's much more than project management. And it's exactly when I clicked and said, oh, this is definitely a product that can be a must-have for an organization. It goes beyond the project management. It goes beyond the coordination of a team. It's on how you break the silo in an organization and how you can make things happen much faster and more efficient. So that's kind of my relationship. Obviously, in the 5.5 years in Asana, I've discovered more and more, and we've been launching. The product has changed dramatically in the years that I've been in Asana, but that's kind of how it started, and then how I got attracted to get into the vendor side and make that shift, that change in the organizations through Asana possible.
Do you think your life would be completely different if you used Monday or ClickUp in your previous job? Do you think you would have done the same job at Monday or at ClickUp?
Well, I can say that because it didn't happen, but I think.
I guess the question is: Do you think Asana has something special that the others don't have?
Well, I do. I think it's I think it's very different in the way we approach the market and how we position the product. A lot of our competitors look at it at the team level, maybe at the productivity only side of things. And I think Asana started from a place where when we tried to go up the ladder in organizations, we were seeking clarity, we were seeking purpose for everyone using that product. And then as a result, as a byproduct of that is when you get the productivity. So we didn't cater only for task management and project management. We were always thinking what else we can add on top to really have that work graph as fluid, as clear, as connected as possible. And I think it kind of translates well on how it's developed, the product with the work graph, that we can deep dive a little bit on it, but the connectivities that happen between the pieces of work, the people that are working together, the teams, and from the top of the organization with the mission and the goals of the organization to the very small pieces of work that happen, which are tasks. So having that connectivity is always what we had in mind. It was a concept, it was an idea, But through the years, we've been executing, we've been moving towards that vision, and now we have everything built.
Probably convincing Bastien or myself about using Asana would be super easy because, as you know, we are fans of the product and long-time users. When a CEO of a big corporation is thinking about using Asana, what would be the main pitch? Probably when talking to employees or the final user, it's easier because you make their work easier. But what's the selling point to a CEO or CIO of a big corporation?
Well, I think that relates with what I was saying before in terms of that work graph and the connectivity, that kind of like a tool that has been created not only for the teams and the individuals, but for full organizations. I think the pitch, or maybe how I would tell the story of Asana, is it's good for the people in the basis of your organization, so they would get more productive. They will almost have fun working with the UI that we have, how easy it is to use, how easy it is to understand and collaborate and ping each other through different departments, not only with the people that they maybe sit together if they're in an office or they constantly meet with each other when they're remote, but through the company with other departments. It's so easy because we break those silos. That is on the individual side of things. But then the part that is interesting for the CEO is that because all of that is happening in that platform, and we give tools to slice and dice that information in the way that makes sense for those people up in the organization, it's what adds value to them. So they will be able to see how well they're progressing towards their goals. For instance, they will be able to see how well those strategic initiatives that they're trying to run are progressing, if there's roadblockers, if they need to focus on certain or put certain attention in pieces that are not working as much, if they need to report up to other people on certain things, the likes of maybe investors or maybe advisors, or even like within the board, if they need to discuss certain things, they will have as much information as they want in there, as summarized as they want, but also as detailed as they want. The other piece is that with everything that I was saying in terms of breaking the silos, the organizational culture will change as well. So you can change the culture of the organization through a tool. It's not that we're implementing a tool just for the sake of being effective and productive. We're also implementing it in order to break those silos, which culturally will help on them collaborating better. And the magic happens when different side of things or different mindsets are put together and brainstorming in an idea. That's where cross-pollination of ideas, brainstorming, and creativity happens. That's how I would put it. It's more of an organizational change and less of a tool that brings you productivity and impact to the business.
From the solutions perspective, do you think there are cases where Asana is not the right tool? Have you seen clients for whom it just doesn't work?
Yeah, I mean, and it connects with what I was saying. I think for that organizational change, you need to be ready. You need to be eager to get that. You can tell as much as you want about the organizational change and a constant improvement of what you're doing on a daily basis. But if the mindset doesn't exist at some level, then that is not going to happen. The requirements that they will have, or the expectations that they will have from a tool or from a project and implementation that they're doing, they're going to be different. So if you think about maybe a person that comes from traditional project management, where they want to have everything in a bunker, protected, only editable by them, and they want to get updates on meetings, on stand-ups, all that kind of stuff, Asana doesn't bring that. Asana is a democratization of project management, if you want, a democratization of work management. If some organizations are against that, it's where you would see some difficulties on getting to have a good and productive conversation with them. Of course, there's a trade-off, and that's where Asana is adding more functionality to protect certain fields, to make sure that you have a way of scaling that is a little bit more organized than just pure democracy and chaos in terms of everyone can create anything. So I think it's going to be key to find that balance and that trade-off that I was saying, and that's where we're working towards. So we started in a place where we could be very democratic and open to everyone, empowering all the employees, all the users of Asana. as we scale and we go to bigger organizations, there always need to be a little bit of standardization, centralization, defining how at least you need to work on certain processes, certain workflows. So that is where I would see the biggest challenge: people's mindset not being ready to empower the employee, to give that a little bit of flexibility and trust, if you want, to the users of the tool.
This is something we talked about with David in a previous episode. As a consultant, we try to explain the philosophy, the vision that Asana has when we start. And I think, I didn't go to the website recently, but I don't think Asana is doing an amazing job at communicating that vision. And I'm pretty sure we end up with clients that do not understand that democracy and transparency philosophy that Asana has.
Yeah, that's a fair enough point. I would say we do a good job when we're working on the thought leadership piece that we have. So the Work Innovation Lab and the Work Innovation Summit that we're going to be running in the coming weeks, where we'll be talking about the future of work and how we envision that. It's true that on the market, on the streets, maybe that is too high level of a conversation. So you will be able to have that conversation with specific people, maybe visionary CEOs or at C-level, maybe people that are ready for doing that digital transformation. So digital workplace officers, all that kind of people maybe are open to have that conversation. But if you go exactly with that only vision or narrative, it's kind of, we're trying to lecture everyone how they should be doing business. And there's plenty of organizations that have been running for centuries that they don't run in this way, and they're very productive, they're very effective, right? So I think it's a trade-off. Yes, we need to push for that message at the right time, and we build content that talks about that. We have plenty of examples where customers of us are talking about how they culturally transform their business. And not only culturally, but like they provide better work-life balance. For instance, we have a customer in Germany where they were able to cut 1 day of the week of all their employees, and they now have a 4-day week journey, right? Or a week time for all their employees. And that was thanks to Asana. It's an amazing use case that we can talk about. It's part of the culture. You give back to the employee. Others might not give back to the employee, but might say, let's be more productive, let's build more, let's sell more. It's up to the business to decide what they want to do with that productivity and efficiency.
Yeah, I agree, as Bastien said, that sometimes this first conversation with a potential customer, we don't have to start talking about Asana features or Asana pricing or the structure of the onboarding process, but talking about culture, values, and see if they are aligned with Asana. Otherwise, you end up finding a roadblock later in a stage that. Yeah. You mentioned that in these 5 years that you've been in the company, you've seen the product leaning to the vision that there was. What are the trends that you foresee in the upcoming months, years?
Yeah, so for the last 5 years, if you want, it was about building that, what we call the pyramid of clarity, which is all those levels that I was talking about, right? From the tasks to projects to portfolios and initiatives, and then objectives and mission. Now you have, if you think about it, you could build or you could do anything in Asana on all the levels of the organization, right? You could at least reference, pull some information, get some dashboards built in there for any type of work that exists in an organization at every level. I think the next step is obviously adding some kind of a niche solution. So for instance, at the portfolio level, there's a lot to be done there in order to be much more solid. In the resource management point of view, a lot to be done in that part to become very solid and robust. So we will be able to add more stuff in the whole pyramid of clarity. But I think the biggest kind of jump that we can do is adding the artificial intelligence, as you know, probably is something that we are very vocal about now. Is Asana Intelligence, is some of the features that we're putting on top of all that work graph, all that pyramid of clarity, because we have all that data that has been put in by the users, that is trusted, that is licensed now manually by all our customers. If we can give them just a lip with the artificial intelligence, they could get much more done. We could give recommendations on what type of templates they could build based on what they've been doing in the past. We could give them recommendations on the rules and automations that they could use, depending on what function they are, what type of work they've been doing. And then you could take conclusions out of all the information that exists there. So you could ask really, what's the situation of this specific project or initiative? In the future, maybe you can even ask, what do I need to do today? And then Asana would give you an idea of like, these are your priorities, there are the tasks that you need to do, these are the meetings that you should be prioritizing and the people that you should be meeting, and so on and so forth. That obviously is farther down the line, but that's the vision, right? Like now that we are building, or we build a very solid and robust network of data, tasks, people, teams working together, how we add that smartness on top of it.
It would be amazing to be able to say, I have 30 minutes, I'm a bit tired, can you find me something to do that requires
exactly
a low level of energy?
An assistant for your calendar, an assistant for your daily work. And if you think about it, that's a lot of the things that other competitors that are doing, right? But what we really are trying to do is becoming that assistant for the organization as a whole. So it's easier to be an assistant for maybe at the task level and at the project level. What's going to be really, really interesting is to be that assistant at the very top of the organization, talking about goals, talking about like, what is my my best move in terms of strategic initiative, analyzing bottlenecks and seeing alternatives on how to even solve them. Could be the likes of thinking in my organization, let's say, piece of sales enablement that will improve sales performance by X, that is given to you by AI. That would be really, really interesting, right? Very futuristic, but nevertheless very, very interesting.
And do you think the Asana users will or do structure their project and tasks in a good enough way that the AI will be able to make suggestions? Because this is one of my fear. When I look at some clients' account, it's just a big mess. They don't name things properly. There's no due dates, no dependencies. Yeah. And I think the AI needs all of that stuff to be clean in order to make the right suggestions.
So yeah, or even could suggest you that you do that work first, right? Yeah. Like in order for me to work properly, you need to add all this stuff. So you could identify things that are inconsistent or things that are a little bit broken, unstructured, and say, hey, I need you to do this before I can give you a proper or a good enough answer. One of the things that we're thinking is exactly that, to just with a click of a button, get suggestions from the AI on how you should build things, like what are the custom fields that you should add here, what are the roles that you should add here. So getting that structure automatically from that assistant, from that artificial intelligence that could be on your organization or as a whole. Like what we know from Asana customers, what they're doing is things like this. And that's where the intelligence or a shared intelligence of all the users, all the user base of Asana could happen as well. Obviously maintaining confidentiality and privacy and all that stuff, but using that kind of how people are using Asana in a way to suggest other more new users into the platform.
As we said in one of the previous episodes, AI is like having Robin next to you, but you still have to be Batman.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
it's a good help, but it will, as Bastien said, probably it will help to educate users to provide the right information and the right title and dependencies on the task, because users that use Asana properly will be rewarded by the value that AI can generate from this information. Quite often, this type of products have the short blanket problem. If you move to the blanket to your feet, then you have your head cold, and the other way around. What we've detected in the past months, probably a couple of years, is that Asana is leaning more to an enterprise client, and maybe some features are not aimed for these small teams, even small startups that might think about Asana to handle to manage their work. Is that trend for real, or this is just a perception?
Is it accurate? That's what you're saying. Is it accurate? I think it's accurate in the sense that yes, we're growing towards that, right? So the jump or the investment that we need to make towards that direction is bigger than improving what we've been very good already, which is in the small business and mid-market, and like or teams, sub-functions of big organizations. As we're trying to build and go up the ladder to expand bigger in big organizations, the needs are different, right? There's a little bit more structure that needs to happen, centralization that needs to happen. So all that kind of functionality that we're putting on top is catered towards that expansion to big corporations. Nevertheless, we're not neglecting the sweet spot where we've grown, where we were born. So we are building also on top of like those things that are our bread and butter, our task, our projects, our collaboration, if you want, integrations that will be interesting for certain specific functions, all that kind of stuff. It's also worked on. But yeah, if you think about like proportions, we've grown much more in investment towards the enterprise or big corporations, because where we want to grow towards, and where we're seeing that very democratic approach is struggling to get into like the more traditional or bigger organizations. So it's about finding that trade-off between staying where you're really good or wanting to grow to something else by catering for everyone, really. The vision of Asana almost would be to become, as I was saying, a must-have tool that every single organization has, and then collaboration doesn't happen in that organizational pyramid of clarity. You could merge pyramids of different organizations if they're partners, and you could have that collaboration across organization, even not only in your own organization. So if you think about that, the more we expand, the more we penetrate the market, the easier it will be to get into that shared brain, shared what I want to say, intelligence, if you want, or shared knowledge.
Yeah, Slack, to mention, not a competitor, but another player in the market, has done, I think, quite a good job with Slack connections, where you don't need to switch to have some conversations. Is Asana leaning also to this kind of shared spaces or shared projects that you don't need to switch to the other organization? If it's something that cannot be disclosed.
I mean, the collaboration can always happen, right? Like, as you know, that can always happen. I would say what would be interesting is to get from an individual point of view, a single inbox where you can see everything that happens across your different organizations, partners, clients, and so on. But that collaboration already happens, right? The project, the task maybe lives in one organization specifically, but then you can invite people from outside. So that cross-pollination of or collaboration between different organizations can already happen. As you probably know, it's going to be more of like how you make that experience a little bit better for individuals, and maybe also for organizations, how you can identify what's collaborated with other people and what's kept internal. Can we define certain rules for certain projects to be only internal versus external? How we want to control or embrace and empower people to collaborate more with certain of our partners, certain customers, and so on. I think making that experience better is what's going to be key, but the functionality is already there.
The company... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to your job as a solution team. Can you explain what's your job on a daily basis? I guess it's finding solutions to people's problem. So do you try to use native features? Do you try to find workarounds? How often do you involve custom dev using the API? Do you even suggest using the API? Can you expand on this a bit?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's actually that I think it's a point that I think we could push more towards, because I do believe that Asana, as it's built in, it's amazing and it's super powerful. But if you want platform on top of it, you can get much better customized solutions for your customers. and for your own organization. So that is something that we do suggest. We have specialists in our organization that do that, and then obviously we work with partners like you to build certain specific or bespoke customizations for customers around EMEA. But going back to your first part of the question, which was on a daily basis what we do, we are the partner in crime of what you would understand as the seller or the account executive, account manager. So we work along those people in really different stages of a deal, right? If you start knowing a customer, maybe in the early stages, we are not needed because we don't have the bandwidth to be everywhere. But as soon as we have a good grasp of a company needing a solution like Asana, is where we would be getting in to do a little bit more of a deep discovery, understanding what are their needs, their challenges, their current scenarios, maybe things that we could optimize already. Even outside of the technology, even without us using Asana, what steps we could improve in their processes and how they collaborate with other people, how we could centralize things in one single place instead of scatter across different systems. So we do all that kind of consultancy piece. And then as we are progressing the conversation with our customer, we suggest what we would see as the right solution for them. So we would be doing maybe a demo, maybe a workshop with them, building it for them. They can play around with it, they can get hands-on and get conclusions out of it by themselves. The idea is that we do that piece of product expertise during the deal cycle. Not only providing the solution, but also helping them understand how they should measure success of that solution. So sometimes we talk a lot about not only the features and functions and requirements that you have on the process itself, but what you want to get out of it. What's the outcome that you want to get out of it? Is it more efficiency? Is it launching campaigns faster? Is it being able to do more with the same people that you have? If you move towards like the whole organization, maybe growing as an organization, attracting more talent, retaining more talent. So there's a lot of different outcomes that we can get out of it. And we would base the things that we test, that we do in the workshop, the things that we discuss on those metrics. Is it talent retention and talent attraction? Maybe it's a cultural change thing. It's about transparency. It's about communication, collaboration, empowerment of the employee. If it's about efficiency and productivity, maybe it's, again, to streamline their processes and identify where they're not being efficient, maybe bypass some of the steps or change them, consolidate them into one single tool. That kind of stuff is what we focus a lot around. And then apart from that, that would be our core role. But then apart from that, we do like enablement and training. We work with partners and like understanding how they work, and we give them best practices on how we've experimented in the market. Things are resonating. We are the voice of the field or the voice of the customer in terms of their needs of new features and functions in the product, new APIs. How we evolve the product comes a lot from our customers, and we act as that bridge together with other teams in Asana.
Asana was founded and raised, I would say, in California. You are working in Europe.
Yes.
How do you evaluate the diversity or the differences between the North American market and the European region?
Yeah, I mean, it's about having constant communication and like making sure that if you see things not working here, you're vocal about it. That you need to really communicate what's working, what's not working, what we need, and it's always a trade-off between how much impact you can make to the business versus how much more impact you could make if things could change, right? So there's that narrative that needs to be backed up a little bit with data and numbers, but it's a constant dance, if you want, of what are the priorities of certain markets. AMER, although we're diversifying a lot, it's quite tech heavy, and then in EMEA, in other regions, is less tech heavy. Yes, we have tech customers, but it's more in manufacturing and professional services. There are other industries that tend to be a little bit more traditional, a little bit more structured. So there's where that enterprise jump or investment that we want to make, it's quite interesting for the EMEA region because is the majority of the clients that we talk to, that they have that specific mindset. So in that investment or change in the roadmap that you were mentioning before, David, we're very happy about it, because EMEA tends to see a lot of that, much more than that democratic approach to building a business, empowering the employee. Yes, we see examples of that, but there's definitely pockets only. Does that make
Bastien?
sense? Did
Yeah,
I
totally.
Yeah.
No, it
Totally.
does. I do think that American clients are easier to work with. They are usually less demanding than the clients we have. At least in France, they usually expect more from the tool than US-based clients. I don't know if you agree with this.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that I've seen is, obviously I haven't been working directly in EMEA, but from my counterparts and my peers, they tend to go a lot about integrations quite rapidly. So it's easy on one side, but also it's complex on the other side. They do like the full scope solution for them from the get-go. They want to bring together all the tools in the tool stack. Here in EMEA, yes, they would be more demanding on the built-in solution, but they wouldn't be looking at integrations from the get-go and from the very beginning. They would be looking at, let's implement this first, let's see how the product works, and then we'll bring the integrations later. We'll bring the connectivity with our tool stack a little bit later. So I think it's just a different approach of how markets and customers think about implementing technology.
Definitely. David and I, we did a lot of sessions with clients. And one thing we realized was that very often Asana will reveal problems the company already had before, problems with processes and the way they work, and just problem with culture. Does that happen with your team as well? And does that happen often?
Yeah, it definitely happens. I mean, in a way, what we're doing a lot of times when we're having conversation is almost introducing a new way of working, introducing a category, right? So with that comes realizations in the company. There's realizations about like, oh, we thought this process was quite spot on and streamlined, and we knew exactly who was invested and included in the process. And all of a sudden they're realizing that actually it's much more complex than we thought. Like there's more people involved. We should be working with all these people and share information across and all that stuff. So there's definitely a realization moment from a customer a lot of times. Even the likes of certain RFPs, which is a different, obviously, type of interaction with customers, they tend to be a little bit more isolated or less communicative. We've come with the approach of like, hey, we're going to give you an answer to this, but what if you think about in this way? Why are you thinking like work management, democratic empowerment of the employee mindset? And in some cases, in some instances, we've made them change the requirements of the RFP and thinking, oh, okay, that's actually a very good approach. I want to try it out, and they've shifted their approach. So it happens on normal deals, on open communications with customers, also with RFPs, which tend to be more challenging. But yeah, there's that realization point on what you were saying, the processes or lack of transparency or like things like that.
Let me ask you before finishing this episode, what do you value, or let me rephrase it. What is the role of partners like I do or Volcanic for a company like Asana? Why does Asana need its partners?
So I think obviously I come from two companies that have worked with partners. I was a partner myself of Google in the past, so I do understand the role of a partner to be the way you scale. In the beginning, a company can kind of or wants to understand themselves by working internally on their own processes, building playbooks, building motions, and so on. And I do think there's always a need for retaining some kind of that center of excellence, someone that can be testing what's working, what's not working, what's resonating, what's not. But at the end of the day, the way you scale, especially in EMEA with all the different languages and different cultures and approaches on how you sell technology, because we've been now focusing on like very generic way of EMEA mindset. Every single country is different, right? But with all those nuances, the only way that you can scale at the pace that we want is through partners. Then there's the piece as well where we were touching before, the platform. We haven't been capitalizing enough on the platform. I think we would be very successful if partners like you would build products on top of Asana, or would build even platforms on top of Asana, right? So that is also a key role of partners. We cannot build a roadmap or all the functions that every single customer in the world needs. We need partners and we need integrators in order to build those for them, either in a customized project point of view or approach, or maybe they end up realizing that actually this is going to be valuable for all my customers in my country or in the whole region. So I'm going to make it a package. I want to make it a product, and then I'm going to go to market with that specific standalone product. So there's a lot of different roles of the partner, but I think it's how you scale sales, how you scale the product as well. So for me, partners are key to the success of a company.
Excellent. I think I don't have any other question. Bastien, do you have something
yeah,
else for Cesc?
I do have one last question. How clean is your My Task view and how empty is your inbox?
Okay, that's a tricky one. It's quite full. I'll be very honest. It's quite full, and the reason why is because I'm not using the full power of automation myself. So shame on me. But it's quite full. I tend to leave out of my inbox more than my tasks, and then in my tasks I just select the priorities for me. So a little bit of what I would love Asana to give me. These are your priorities, is what I build in my task. Although I have plenty of other stuff, but I focus only on the top section, which is my priority for the week. Those that are a priority, those that are important and timely, is the ones that I focus on. And then because I have a team, obviously we live out of our own shared inbox. So we do have all the things that we're working as a team, and we do collaborate there and so on. But it's quite full, more than what I would like, to be honest.
Fair enough.
Cool. Cesc Artigas, thank you very much for being on the show. We really appreciate having you, our first Asana representative partner. We look forward meeting you, having you again in the future in our podcast. That would be a good sign for all of us. And again, looking forward to meeting you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
David. Thank you, Bastien. And thanks for having me. It's been a privilege to be your first guest. Cheers.